It started quietly, as many things do. The stars were peaceful and humanity had long since settled into a sense of calm. The endless stretches of space, once a mysterious frontier, had become familiar territory. Space exploration had progressed rapidly. Colonies were built on distant moons, mining operations thrived, and interstellar trade flourished. The galaxy, it seemed, was at peace. But peace, like all good things, is fragile. On the far edges of the known galaxy, a new threat was rising, unseen and unknown. The Galactic Council, a united alliance of alien species, had always handled conflicts between its members, but this was something different. The first sign that something was wrong came in the form of a distress signal from one of their most advanced colonies, a thriving world on the edge of the galaxy. It was only a faint whisper at first, an emergency transmission that barely reached the Council's ears. The message was barely audible, but it was clear enough to send shockwaves through the Council. The planet, once a beacon of prosperity and peace, was under attack by a force that was overwhelming, relentless, and strange. It was unlike anything the galaxy had ever faced. The alien invaders were not known. Their ships were unlike any designs in the galactic archives, their weapons incomprehensible. The colony's defense systems were helpless against them. A few seconds of static followed the transmission before the signal went dark. The Galactic Council immediately convened. Representatives from dozens of different species gathered, their faces grim. They had faced war before, but this was something new. The Council had always been prepared for military threats. They had fleets, alliances, and advanced technology. But they had never faced an enemy like this. An enemy that moved quickly, striking without warning and destroying everything in its path. "What are we dealing with?" asked a member of the Andromedan delegation, his voice filled with dread. The others were silent. No one had an answer. The Council members quickly agreed that an immediate response was necessary. An emergency communique was sent out to the neighboring systems, asking for assistance. They reached out to the Venari, an insectoid species known for their advanced fleet. They contacted the Colians, a race of towering, powerful warriors. They called on the Tesseran, beings of pure energy, who had the ability to manipulate time, and yet no one answered. The Colians, despite their strength, feared the unknown. The Venari, always cautious, believed it might be a trap. The Tesseran, who could manipulate space and time, were hesitant to get involved in a conflict they couldn't control. The message was met with silence, the Council members growing more frustrated with each passing minute. After what felt like an eternity, the Galactic Council came to a painful conclusion. None of the galactic powers were willing to act. Fear gripped them all. It wasn't just about the invasion, it was about what the invaders might be. No one knew who they were, where they came from, or what their true intentions were. In the end, the Council was left with only one option: call for help from the one species that had always been on the fringes of galactic politics, humanity. At first, the idea was laughed off. Humanity had always been seen as a young, somewhat naive species, capable but not yet an influential player in galactic affairs. Earth was on the outskirts of the known galaxy, far from the center of the galactic stage. Humans had never been involved in interstellar warfare, and their technology, though advanced, was not on par with the older, more powerful races. But the situation had reached a breaking point. The Council had to act, or it would lose everything. The invaders had wiped out a key colony and were now making their way toward other systems. There was no time to waste. The Galactic Council sent a direct transmission to Earth, asking for humanity's help. A few days later, the message was received on Earth. The transmission was brief but urgent. "Humanity," it said, "we are under attack by an unknown force. We have lost contact with multiple colonies. We request your assistance in this matter. If you are willing, your military might be the only force that can stop them." The message came as a shock to Earth's leaders. In the halls of power, there was immediate confusion. The United Nations convened a special emergency session. The President of the United States, along with the heads of state from around the world, sat around a table trying to make sense of the situation. "We've never been asked to get involved in anything like this," President Jack Holden said, his voice grave. "The galaxy has always been content to leave us alone. Why now?" There were murmurs around the room. Some members of the council argued that humanity should stay out of the conflict. "This is a fight that doesn't concern us," one of the European delegates said. "We should remain neutral. We don't have the resources to fight an intergalactic war." But others saw it differently. "The galaxy is counting on us," said General Maria Reyes, head of the Earth Defense Force. "They've reached out because they need us. This is our moment. We can't afford to stand by." Debate raged on for hours. The room was divided. Some argued that humanity should stay out of it, while others insisted that Earth's military could make the difference. The situation was unlike any other humanity had faced before. In the end, it was the president's decision to make. Jack Holden stood, looking out the window of the conference room. The stars beyond the glass seemed to twinkle innocently, unaware of the conflict brewing in the galaxy. "We will answer their call," he said. His voice was firm. "Humanity is stronger than anyone thinks. We may not have the most advanced technology, but we have something they don't have: determination. If we don't act, the galaxy will fall, and we can't let that happen." It was decided. Earth would send its fleet, its soldiers, and its people to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Humanity's intervention would be the last hope of the galaxy, and it would come not from a council of ancient species but from a single young species that had everything to prove. As soon as President Jack Holden made the decision, Earth's military forces sprang into action. The message from the Galactic Council had been received by every major military organization on Earth, and it didn't take long for the world to unite under a common cause. The call for help had reached the one place no one expected: Earth. The thought that humanity, a species still growing in the vastness of the galaxy, would now be a key player in a galactic conflict was as astonishing as it was terrifying. A message was broadcast across the planet, reassuring the public that their leaders had decided to act. The message was simple, yet it carried the weight of a great responsibility. "We will stand with the galaxy. Humanity will answer the call to defend peace." For the people of Earth, it was a moment of mixed emotions. There was fear, of course. The galaxy was a vast and unknown place, full of alien species that many had only read about in books or seen in science fiction movies. But there was also a sense of pride. Humanity was being trusted with something monumental. The fate of the galaxy, and perhaps the future of Earth itself, rested on their shoulders. General Maria Reyes, a seasoned military leader and the head of Earth's Defense Force, was the one who would lead the charge. She understood the magnitude of the situation, but she also knew that humanity's greatest strength was its ability to adapt and fight against impossible odds. Reyes stood in front of a holographic map of the galaxy, her eyes fixed on the unknown region where the alien invaders had first struck. The map was filled with blinking lights representing various star systems, some of which had already gone dark. The vast majority of the galaxy's most powerful species had refused to intervene, leaving Earth to face this crisis alone. It was a sobering thought. "We've been underestimated," she said, turning to the officers gathered in the war room. "The Council doesn't think we're ready for this. They think we're too young. But we've fought wars of our own. We've survived the harshest conditions. We have the will to fight and the courage to win. It's time we show them what humanity is capable of." A heavy silence hung in the room as the officers absorbed her words. Reyes was right. Earth had come a long way in a short time. From the ashes of past conflicts, the human race had risen. They had built cities on the moon, sent probes to distant planets, and even established small colonies on nearby worlds. But the prospect of war in space was entirely new. On the other side of Earth's political spectrum, the decision was met with more resistance. There were those who felt that humanity should remain neutral. Many had lived their entire lives in relative peace, and the thought of being dragged into an intergalactic war was unsettling. The idea of facing an enemy who had wiped out entire colonies without a trace of remorse was enough to make anyone question the wisdom of this decision. But humanity had always been a species defined by its resilience. As Earth's warships were assembled and the military forces began their final preparations, people all over the planet began to rally behind their leaders. Soldiers, engineers, scientists, and civilians. Everyone knew their role in the coming conflict. Everyone understood that if Earth failed, so too would the rest of the galaxy. There was no turning back now. As the days passed, humanity's fleet slowly but surely gathered in orbit around Earth. It was the largest collection of ships ever assembled, and the sight of it was awe-inspiring. Thousands of military personnel, engineers, and support staff worked tirelessly to ensure that the fleet was ready for what lay ahead. The ships, ranging from massive warships to smaller scout vessels, stood poised in space like a force of nature. General Reyes walked the hangar bays inspecting the fleet. She had led countless operations on Earth's soil, but this was different. This was the first time humanity would fight a war beyond their homeworld. Her mind raced with thoughts of the enemy. Who were they? What did they want? And what would happen if Earth failed? The soldiers aboard the ships were a diverse group, drawn from all corners of Earth. There were veterans who had fought in the wars of Earth's past, and there were young recruits eager for their first taste of battle. Everyone had one thing in common: the belief that they were defending not just their home but the future of the galaxy. Reyes knew that the first encounter with the invaders would be crucial. Earth's forces might not have the technological superiority of the more established galactic races, but they had something that no one else had: a fierce determination to protect what they loved. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the civilian population was bracing for the worst. People gathered in their homes following the news, hoping for the best but preparing for the worst. Supplies were stockpiled and shelters were readied in case the war spread to Earth itself. Despite the fear, there was also a sense of unity that hadn't been seen in decades. In the face of a common enemy, humanity was standing together. On the day the fleet left Earth's orbit, there was no grand ceremony, no fanfare. It was a quiet departure, with thousands of families watching in silence as their loved ones sailed into the unknown. The ships were not just military vessels. They were symbols of hope. Humanity's last hope. The fleet began its journey to the galactic battlefield, the vastness of space stretching out before them. Reyes stood at the helm of the flagship, the Hope's Wrath, gazing out the viewports at the stars. The fleet was united not just by the purpose of their mission, but by the shared belief that they could make a difference. As the ships departed, a new transmission arrived from the Galactic Council. It was short, but the message was clear. Thank you, humanity. We are honored to stand alongside you. The words were meant to inspire hope, but they only served to remind humanity of the stakes. The galaxy was in danger, and Earth was now the galaxy's best chance at survival. As the fleet moved deeper into space, Reyes spoke to her crew over the ship's intercom. This is our moment. We fight not just for ourselves, but for everyone. The galaxy needs us, and we will not fail them. The journey ahead would be long and filled with uncertainty, but one thing was certain: humanity was no longer a bystander in the galaxy. They were now the answer to a desperate call for help, and they would fight with everything they had. The journey to the edge of the galaxy was long and filled with uncertainty. As the human fleet ventured deeper into space, Earth's leaders remained in constant contact with the Galactic Council, coordinating strategies and sharing intelligence. But as the days passed, a sense of unease began to settle over the crew. The alien invaders were still unknown, and despite the Council's best efforts, no one could say for certain what humanity was walking into. General Maria Reyes stood in the command center of the flagship Hope's Wrath, staring out into the vastness of space. The endless black of the universe stretched before her, a reminder of just how small humanity was in the grand scheme of things. But that thought didn't scare her. Instead, it filled her with resolve. Earth might be small, but it had something that the rest of the galaxy hadn't counted on: human determination. Her officers were busy at their stations making preparations for the upcoming battle. Reyes knew that the fleet would be fighting on the edge of what humanity could handle. They had trained, prepared, and gathered the best minds from every corner of Earth. But the truth was that no one really knew what would happen when they met the enemy. Would humanity's strategy be enough? Would their courage carry them through? Reyes shook her head, clearing the doubts from her mind. She had seen soldiers face impossible odds before. She had seen the human spirit at its best, standing firm, in the face of overwhelming adversity. The rest of the galaxy might look down on them, but Earth had something that couldn't be ignored. Its people. "We're almost there, General," Captain Jonah Wright said, looking over at her from his post. His face was tense, but there was a fire in his eyes. "We'll reach the war zone within the next few hours." Reyes nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. This was the turning point. Earth's decision to get involved in the conflict was not just a decision for the military. It was a decision for every person on Earth. Humanity had chosen to answer the call, knowing that failure would mean the destruction of everything they held dear. The transmission from the Galactic Council came through just as Reyes was about to address the crew. It was a short message, but it carried a heavy tone. "General Reyes," the voice of the Council representative said, "we've received new intelligence. The enemy has destroyed several more colonies. They are not stopping. We are unsure of their full capabilities, but we believe they are heading toward the core systems. If you are to act, it must be now." Reyes's heart sank. The situation was worse than anyone had imagined. Earth's fleet, the only force standing between the invaders and the rest of the galaxy, had no choice but to fight. There was no more room for hesitation. If Earth's fleet didn't stop them here, the invaders would keep moving unstoppable toward the heart of the galaxy. "Understood," Reyes replied, her voice steady despite the urgency she felt. "We'll engage them as planned. No one else is coming. It's on us." The message ended and Reyes turned to face her crew. "This is it," she said, her voice carrying across the room. "There's no turning back now. We've been given a chance to protect the galaxy, and we will take it. Humanity's strength has always come from our ability to face the unknown and fight for what we believe in. Today, we fight for our future." A wave of determination spread through the room. The officers nodded, their faces hardening with resolve. They were ready. Every single one of them had volunteered to fight, to defend not just their homeworld but the entire galaxy. They were humans, and they were not going to let fear stop them. The fleet continued its journey to the front lines, and Reyes spent the next few hours preparing for battle. The commanders of the other human ships were in constant communication with her, finalizing the strategies they had developed over the past week. Earth's fleet was smaller than the forces of the galaxy's most powerful races, but it was well coordinated, disciplined, and motivated. The key to victory would be their ability to adapt quickly. Unlike the other alien races, humanity had faced conflict on its own planet for centuries. Wars, civil unrest, and the struggle to survive had honed their instincts. And now, those instincts would be put to the test. As Earth's fleet reached the outermost rim of the war zone, Reyes took a deep breath. The moment had come. Through the ship's windows she could see the vast expanse of space before them, with distant stars twinkling in the distance. The fleet had arrived in the heart of the unknown, and the enemy was somewhere out there waiting. "Status report," Reyes called out, her voice calm but commanding. "Fleet is ready, General," Captain Wright replied. "All ships are in position. We've initiated the first wave of our assault. Once we make contact with the enemy, the rest of the fleet will follow." Reyes nodded, turning back to the map of the area. The enemy was close now, and they were waiting for them. She had no illusions about the difficulty of the task ahead. This would be a fight for survival. But humanity had always thrived under pressure. They had fought battles on their own world and survived. Now they would show the galaxy what humanity was capable of. "Engage," Reyes ordered, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. The fleet moved forward, and the first wave of ships entered the war zone. As the ships glided into position, There was a brief moment of silence, a moment where the galaxy held its breath. And then, without warning, the enemy appeared. It was like nothing they had ever seen before. The invaders' ships were massive, with sharp, angular designs that seemed to pierce the darkness. They moved in perfect formation, their weapons already charged and ready for combat. Reyes's heart raced, but she didn't falter. This was it. This was humanity's moment. "All ships, open fire," she ordered. The battle began. The human fleet unleashed a barrage of energy blasts, and the air around them lit up with flashes of light and explosions. The invaders retaliated quickly, their weapons firing with deadly precision. But humanity's ships were fast, maneuvering through the chaos with agility that the larger, more cumbersome invaders could not match. It was a fight for survival, a fight for the future of the galaxy. And humanity, despite the odds, was ready. The battle was unlike anything humanity had ever experienced. The silence of space, which had once been comforting, was now broken by the roar of engines and the thunder of weapons. Earth's fleet, now fully engaged in the conflict, was locked in a fierce struggle with the alien invaders. The enemy ships were massive, their sleek dark forms cutting through space with terrifying speed. Their weapons were precise, deadly, and powerful. General Maria Reyes stood at the command station aboard the Hope's Wrath, the flagship of Earth's fleet, her hands gripping the console. The view outside the ship's windows showed flashes of light as explosions erupted across the dark expanse. For the first time, humanity was in the heart of a galactic war, fighting not just for survival, but for the future of the galaxy. The enemy, though overwhelming in size, had underestimated humanity's resilience. Earth's fleet was smaller, but its soldiers were ready to face the unknown. They were determined, focused, and united. Each ship, though different in design, moved in perfect synchronization, working together to avoid the devastating fire of the alien invaders. "General, we've lost the Atlas," Captain Wright said, his voice tense as he watched the battle unfold on his screen. "They took a direct hit to the engine. We're down one ship." Reyes clenched her jaw but didn't let her emotion show. Every loss stung, but they couldn't afford to dwell on. And now, the fate of the galaxy was at stake. "Keep pushing forward. We need to hold the line," she said firmly. The Hope's Wrath shook as enemy fire struck the shields, but the ship held strong. The crew moved with precision, responding to the demands of the battle with practiced ease. Reyes's eyes never left the screen. She watched as the alien ships closed in on their position, their weapons charging for another round of destruction. "Lock onto their weak points. Target their engines and weapon systems," Reyes ordered. She knew the enemy's advantage was their firepower, but if humanity could disable their ships before they could fire again, the tide could shift in their favor. The crew moved quickly to comply. Earth's fleet wasn't as advanced as the invaders, but it was fast, nimble, and innovative. The ship's smaller sizes and maneuverability allowed them to slip past the invaders' defenses, targeting weak spots with precision strikes. "Firing!" Captain Wright called out, and a volley of missiles shot from the Hope's Wrath, streaking across space toward one of the invaders' ships. The target exploded in a bright flash, its massive frame disintegrating into fragments. The crew cheered, but there was no time to celebrate. More enemy ships were closing in. The battle raged on for hours, the sounds of weapons and explosions filling the air. Each attack brought a new wave of fear, but also a wave of determination. Humanity was not backing down. Earth's fleet had been underestimated, but they were showing the galaxy that they were a force to be reckoned with. Reyes continued to issue commands, her voice steady even as the battle grew more intense. "Target their leadership. If we take down their command vessel, it might cause chaos in their ranks." The crew was already making preparations. The Hope's Wrath launched another barrage of firepower, aimed directly at the largest of the alien ships. This one was different. Its weapons were far more advanced, and it commanded the invader fleet from the rear. Reyes knew that taking it down would send a powerful message to the rest of the enemy forces. It was a risk, but they had no choice. The alien ship retaliated, its weapons striking Earth's fleet with brutal efficiency. One by one, smaller ships fell to the enemy's fire, but Earth's forces refused to break. The crew aboard the Hope's Wrath held their ground, using every maneuver, every tactic, and every ounce of humanity's ingenuity to fight back. "Direct hit to our starboard side," Lieutenant Anna Patel called out, her voice sharp. "Shields. Holding, but we've taken some damage." "Patch it up, Patel," Reyes ordered. "We can't afford to slow down." The crew worked quickly, their hands moving over the consoles, repairing systems while the battle continued around them. Reyes felt the weight of every decision, every loss, but she kept her focus. Her people were counting on her to lead them through this. As the minutes turned into hours, the battle showed no signs of stopping. The alien ships were relentless, and despite humanity's best efforts, they seemed to be everywhere at once. But the Hope's Wrath and its fleet were not
giving up.
Reyes knew the enemy had expected them to falter, to retreat in the face of such overwhelming power. But Earth's people didn't know how to quit. They had faced darkness before, and they would face it again, no matter the cost. "General, we've hit their leadership," Captain Wright shouted, his voice full of triumph. The Hope's Wrath had finally found its mark, striking the alien command ship with a direct hit. The ship shuddered, its shields flaring up in a desperate attempt to withstand the assault, but it wasn't enough. The ship began to break apart, its massive frame crumbling under the pressure of the attack. The sight of the alien command ship falling was a victory, but Reyes knew the war was far from over. The enemy might have lost their leadership, but the remaining forces were still a threat. She could feel the eyes of the entire galaxy on her fleet, and she wouldn't let them down. "We've got them on the run," Reyes said, her voice calm but full of determination. "Keep the pressure on them. We have to push them out of this sector before they regroup." The battle continued, but the tide was shifting. Earth's fleet, battered and bruised, had made its mark. The invaders were no longer as confident. Their ships moved more cautiously now, their attacks less coordinated. It wasn't a complete victory yet, but humanity had made its point. The galaxy would never see Earth the same way again. As the battle began to wind down, Reyes watched as the enemy ships began to retreat, one by one. The invaders were not giving up completely, but they were backing off. They had underestimated humanity, and now they knew better. The fight wasn't over, but Earth had made it clear that they were not afraid to stand their ground. Reyes let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. They had won this round. But the war was far from over. "Prepare for the next phase," she ordered. "We'll follow them to the next battleground." Humanity had taken the first step into the unknown. It had struck the first blow, and it had proven that Earth's people would never back down. The galaxy would soon understand what humanity was capable of. This was only the beginning. As the enemy's fleet retreated, a sense of cautious relief spread through Earth's forces. General Maria Reyes watched from the command station of the Hope's Wrath as the battle slowly began to subside. The enemy, though not completely defeated, was clearly shaken. Their once formidable offensive had faltered, and for the first time since the conflict began, the fleet felt a sense of triumph. But Reyes knew better than to celebrate too soon. The invaders were powerful, and they had not shown all their cards yet. This victory, while important, was just the first step in a long, uncertain road. "Report," Reyes said, her voice steady yet carrying the weight of the moment. "General, we've pushed the enemy back from the core systems," Captain Jonah Wright reported. "Their leadership is gone, and they've begun regrouping at the outer edge of the war zone. We've inflicted significant damage, but they're still a force to be reckoned with." Reyes nodded, her mind already calculating the next move. "What's their current position?" "They've split into smaller groups," Wright replied. "It looks like they're preparing for another attack, but they're being more cautious now. We've got a chance to strike before they regroup." Libori. Truth was, Reyes wasn't sure what the next move should be. Earth's fleet had already proven itself capable of holding its ground, but the galaxy had underestimated just how determined humanity could be. Now, they had to stay one step ahead of the enemy. "Prepare for another assault," Reyes ordered. "This time we hit them hard and fast. We don't give them time to regroup." The fleet moved into position, but there was a shift in the atmosphere aboard the ships. The crew, while still focused, had begun to show the strain of the ongoing conflict. No one had expected this war to last so long, and each passing moment brought a new wave of exhaustion and tension. Yet despite the weariness, there was a fire in their hearts. They had proven that they could face the impossible, and now they were determined to finish what they had started. The human fleet had suffered losses, ships destroyed, soldiers wounded, and entire crews lost, but they had pushed through. Each loss made them more determined to win, to show the galaxy that humanity was not something to be overlooked. "General, incoming enemy vessels." Lieutenant Patel's voice cut through the tension. "They're coming in fast from the outer rim. It looks like they've gathered reinforcements." Reyes's eyes narrowed. She knew this moment was coming. The enemy had regrouped and was coming back with greater numbers. They had learned from their previous defeat and were adapting to humanity's tactics. Earth's fleet, though resilient, was now faced with a new challenge. "Brace for impact," Reyes ordered. "All ships, prepare for combat." "We're not letting them take the initiative this time." The fleet moved into formation, ready to face the oncoming wave. Reyes's hands gripped the armrests of her chair as the battle began to intensify once again. The invaders' reinforcements were formidable, more ships, more firepower, and the element of surprise on their side. But Earth's forces had learned from their earlier encounters. They were ready to fight smarter, not just harder. "Fire!" Reyes shouted. The Hope's Wrath and the rest of the fleet unleashed a devastating barrage of energy blasts, targeting the enemy's weaker points. The battle raged, with the flashes of gunfire lighting up the dark expanse of space. The sound of weapons firing echoed through the ship's speakers as explosions and debris filled the viewports. Humanity's ships were small and nimble, moving with a precision and agility that the larger alien ships could not match. The enemy fired relentlessly, but Earth's fleet danced around the blasts, dodging and retaliating with deadly accuracy. For every ship the enemy destroyed, Earth's forces took down two. The alien invaders, though powerful, were beginning to lose their grip on the battlefield. The humans had shown them the strength of their resolve, and now they were starting to break. "General," Captain Wright said, his voice tense, "the enemy is breaking formation. They're starting to retreat." Reyes's heart raced. This was the turning point. Earth's fleet had pushed the invaders back once again, but this time they were not letting them escape. The galaxy was watching, and humanity's actions would define their future in the stars. "Do not let them regroup," Reyes ordered. "We finish this now. Pursue them." The fleet moved in hot pursuit, closing the gap between them and the retreating invaders. It was a dangerous move, chasing the enemy into unfamiliar territory, but it was the only way to ensure they wouldn't return to fight another day. The alien ships were slowing down, their once fluid movements becoming more erratic as their forces were pushed to the brink. Earth's fleet pressed forward, determined to deliver a crushing blow that would force the invaders to rethink their plans. The battle was still fierce, but the end was in sight. The Hope's Wrath led the charge, its weapons firing with relentless precision. It was clear that humanity's tactics were winning. The enemy, though powerful, could not match the ingenuity and resilience of Earth's forces. For every move the invaders made, Earth adapted. It was a fight of wills, and humanity's will was unyielding. One by one, the invaders' ships were taken out, their once formidable fleet crumbling under the weight of humanity's resolve. The alien forces had underestimated the power of a species fighting for its future. They had not expected Earth to rise to the challenge. "Enemy fleet in retreat," Captain Wright reported. "We've done it. They're leaving." Reyes let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. It wasn't the end of the war, but it was a decisive victory. The invaders had been pushed back, and the galaxy now knew that humanity was not a force to be taken lightly. The battle had proven that Earth could not just survive. It could thrive in the face of impossible odds. The victory came at a heavy cost. Earth's fleet had suffered significant losses, and the toll on the soldiers was visible. But as the dust settled, there was no mistaking the truth. Humanity had turned the tide of the war. "Prepare for the next phase," Reyes said, her voice strong but weary. "This is just the beginning. The galaxy has been watching, and we've shown them what we're made of. We will finish this war and we will win. Humanity's battle was far from over, but in this moment, they had proven something that would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. When faced with the unknown, when everything seemed lost, humanity would rise to the challenge. And in their darkest hour, they had been the ones to answer.